A freezing Paris morning silenced by soft mist carries the sound of impatient heels and clattering cups from a luxury CAF nestled beside Place Vendme. Ibrahim Traoré, known to many as the calm revolutionary voice of West Africa, sits at a small corner table alone, dressed not in his usual military attire, but in a civilian coat and scarf, his presence subtle yet magnetic. A waiter in pressed white sets down a plate, medium-rare steak in red wine glaze, steam curling upward like whispers. A hush rides the air as eyes shift toward him, some in awe, others in masked contempt, as Traoré raises his fork to slice into the meat. A sharp cry pierces the fogged glass. "Don't eat that." All heads snap toward the CAF window. A barefoot boy no older than 10, caked in grime, is yelling from the curb, eyes locked on the plate, panic trembling in his voice. "Don't eat it." A manager hurries outside, grabs the boy by the collar, shoving him aside as murmurs ripple across the patrons. But Traoré's hand freezes midair. He looks out beyond the boy's torn coat and shivering limbs and sees something in his eyes, not desperation for food, but fear. Not hunger, but warning. He gently sets the fork down. "Wait," he says softly, a tone that stills even the scurrying waitstaff. He stands, approaches the boy. "What did you see?" The manager interrupts with a laugh. "He's crazy. They all are. Ignore him." But the boy's voice cracks again. "I saw what he put in the sauce." That sentence, delivered like a verdict, sends a shiver through the gathering crowd. Traoré asks that the boy not be touched and insists he be allowed inside. The boy, eyes darting, repeats it under his breath. "He put something in it. I saw him." He said it'd work this time. The scene freezes as the camera zooms into Traoré's unblinking stare, the untouched plate, and the boy's battered shoes. In that silence, something ancient and painful begins to stir. In the days that follow, headlines reduce the event to a curiosity. African leader halted by street boy, food panic at high in CAF, but Traoré does not laugh. He orders a private lab to test the dish, quietly meets the boy whose name is Kofi, and begins to listen. The narration takes us back a month earlier, where inside that same kitchen, a dishwasher named Elaine had quietly tried to report unsafe kitchen practices to management. "They're slipping stuff into certain plates," he whispered to another worker. "The ones they don't like." His claims were dismissed. Days later, Elaine vanished without a trace. His locker remained untouched, his apron still hanging. No police inquiry, no HR memo. Just an empty space where a man used to stand. Kofi, living behind the CAF dumpster, often snuck in for scraps. He watched. He noticed Elaine's sudden absence and the quiet tension in the kitchen afterward. He saw Chef Morel arguing with a supplier in the alley, a vial exchanged behind a delivery crate. He saw the way they laughed after serving food to African immigrants, especially those with legal complaints or worker activism. The narration dives into this rot, showing a pattern of black workers hired for optics, overworked, underpaid, and vanished when inconvenient. The camera moves through Paris's underbelly hostels where ex-workers whisper about being poisoned slowly, hospitals where illnesses are misdiagnosed as stress, and a media that glosses over all of it as immigrant instability. Flashbacks show Kofi trying to tell anyone what he saw. A local reporter closes the door. A priest tells him to pray. A police officer warns him, "These people feed half the city. Don't start trouble." He resorts to watching silently from across the street, until the day he saw the dish headed for Traoré. That was when fear overtook hunger. That was when he screamed. Now, Traoré returns to the CAF, not as a customer, but as a seeker. He speaks to workers, some tight-lipped, others trembling. One waiter, a soft-spoken Algerian man, says under his breath, "Elaine said the same. They told us to forget him." "So we did." Traoré gathers more than testimony, he collects the weight of silence. With Kofi at his side, he visits Elaine's sister, who breaks down at the sight of Elaine's work badge Traoré found discarded in a trash bin. "They said he quit." "He'd never quit," she sobs. The narration paints layers of invisibility, showing how racism doesn't scream, it whispers, excludes, deletes. A chemistry professor in Burkina Faso quietly confirms the trace compound found in Traoré's steak, a chemical that causes slow paralysis if taken repeatedly. Traoré now sees a weapon not meant to kill, but to discredit, to weaken, to ruin reputations with unexplained illnesses. And it has worked for years. He files a complaint, but the French food authorities stall. "There's no substantial evidence," they write. "The boy is unreliable." The lab unverified, so he shifts the battleground. He organizes a press conference right outside the CAF, a cold day, cameras rolling. Journalists expecting a speech on trade policy instead witness a display of raw truth. Traoré holds up photographs. Elaine. Two others who vanished. A toxicology report. This isn't about food, he says. This is about the flavor of racism. Bitter, silent, and carefully plated, Chef Morel steps outside mid-broadcast. This is slander, he yells. We're the victims here. But his voice trembles. A reporter shouts, why were your kitchen cameras wiped last month? No reply. A sous chef named Delphine walks forward. We were told to serve certain meals to certain people. I stayed quiet. I shouldn't have. The crowd gasps. Another former employee sends a voice message played live. They told us Africans wouldn't tell the difference, that they'd think it was just stress or travel sickness. A reporter stammers, so this was targeted? Traoré looks calmly into the lens. Racism doesn't always wear hoods. Sometimes it wears aprons. Chef Morel tries to shout again, but a police van pulls up. He is escorted inside for questioning. The CAF behind him buzzies with panic. Kofi watches, clutching the photo of Elaine. For the first time, someone listened. Traoré turns to him. You started this. You ended this. And the cameras capture the handshake, small fingers, steady eyes closing a wound years in the making. In the following weeks, the CAF shutters its doors, not due to legal mandate, but public rejection. Online reviews crash. Influencers boycott. The chain's investors pull out. More whistleblowers step forward. A silent revolution. The narration follows the quiet aftermath. Chef Morel sits in his apartment, watching old clips of his kitchen TV features. His phone is filled with unanswered calls. His daughter blocks him. A newspaper lies crumpled beside a broken wine glass. Culinary King under criminal investigation. His once spotless hands tremble. Meanwhile, Traoré declines media invitations. He visits Elaine's grave with Kofi. They leave a white flower and a folded napkin embroidered with the CAF's logo, now a symbol of rot-turned resistance. Kofi now lives in a youth shelter, attending school, reading books on justice. He never speaks much, but when asked by a social worker what he wants to be, he replies, someone who listens. The narration closes on a final image, the boarded CAF wall, now covered in graffiti. One line stands out, sprayed in bold red letters, you cannot poison dignity, and below it, a smaller line written in pen, I saw it, I spoke, I lived. The final voice is Traoré, recorded for a student documentary. Silence is a weapon, but so is a whisper when you aim it right. And as the credits metaphorically roll, the story doesn't fade, it lingers. In the air, in the eyes, in every bite we now think twice before taking.